Howdy, folks. Happy Tuesday. We have some news from the New York Islanders. So we brought Dan Petru, our Hockey Buzz alumnus, onto the show. Good afternoon, Dan.
Hey guys, long time no talk, but it's good to be here.
Yeah, we'll dispense with the usual introductions because Dan's got only a few minutes and we want to get to the news. And it broke about an hour ago. The New York Islanders finally lock up Matthew Barzal on an 8-year deal. I think it was $73.2 million, so that's $9.15 million. Dan, your thoughts on this?
It's probably a little too much money. I was thinking maybe something around 8 for 8. With the cap going up, though, I don't think that's the end of the world. I think it's a manageable contract. If things don't work out down the road, the Islanders need to trade him. You pick up 20% or 15% of that deal. It's a very tradable contract, I think. I think the onus is on him now to step up and hopefully with the new coaching staff, try and find his creativity offensively. He's got to score more goals. If they don't have the wingers who can put the puck in the net, he has to do it himself. He needs to be a 25 goal scorer, and they need a point a game out of him. As why I say that as the negatives, it's done with. I think that's great. There's going to be no distractions here. You're not going to have a John Tavares part 2. Clearly, he wanted to stay here. It's signed, and now you don't have to worry about this guy for the next 8 years, and you're really getting him in the prime, quote unquote, the prime of his career. So, like I said, yeah, is it a little too much? Probably, but is it manageable? Absolutely, and I think it's great.
Do they write off because after he scored 85 points in his rookie year, 62, 60, 45, and 59 the last 4 years, do they write that off as a symptom of Barry Trotz wanting to play more defensive minded and sort of squelching his offense a little bit?
Maybe. I think that has something to do with it. Is he an 80-point player? I don't know. I think if the power play wasn't ranked in the bottom 5 consistently and he could get maybe 10 more points in the power play, that would make a big difference. He needs to be in the mid-70s. I don't see why that's not unreasonable. And like I said, if the guys on the wing aren't going to finish, he needs to score 10 more goals a year. He really should be a 25-goal scorer. He has a very good shot, and he does create chances. So Lambert's got to get him off the half boards a little bit more and get him driving to the net more. And also, if he's creating more offense for himself, then if depending on who he's playing with, there could be loose pucks in front of the net, rebounds, things like that. He just needs to get a little more aggressive and stop relying on his wingers.
Yeah, I think the 3 biggest things are he definitely did the right thing. We brought this up a couple of weeks ago when he came out in public and said, "Hey, listen, I'm ready to sign here. Let's get it going." That was a good preemptive move on his part, and I said it at the time. He put all the pressure on the Islanders. That was smart. The Islanders then responded, so that was smart because we heard like a couple days later, hey, all of a sudden, negotiations are picking up. So that was good. That was a good thing. Another thing is I think he is an 80-point guy, but you do have to take the shackles off a little bit, and I think that's a big deal. They do have good enough wingers. I think you have to have the right guys with them. I know the team lacks scoring, and they do. They desperately lack scoring. But I will tell you this. Against the Flyers the other night, and it's preseason, you take out of it what you like, he was skating circles around them. Like there were times they couldn't even touch him on the ice. He was so good just skating around and looking for opportunities. And he was getting chances created, and other guys didn't bury it. So like what Dan is saying is true. Mm-hmm. He is going to have to take a page out of like Claude Giroux, who was also a playmaker, who all of a sudden had to start scoring goals because like it is basic. If they're not going to do it, I got to do it.
And clearly, your daughter agrees, Dan.
Yes, she does. Yes,
but I look at their salary structure right now, and Anders Lee's got 3 years left at $7 million. But a lot of the contracts, Nelson, Palmieri, Bailey, they expire in the next year or two. So going forward, their books are sort of clean in the sense that this isn't going to really hamper them. I mean, they do have the Sorokin contract that they're going to need to extend him after I think this season. I think he's a UFA after this year. But I know that X said something in his blog, and I disagree. I disagree with it. He says, "Well, this definitely means that they're going to contend for a top spot in the division." No, this is holding on to what you have. This isn't this isn't like bringing in somebody else. I think I love Sorokin. He's a really good goaltender. Their defense is solid, but not spectacular. But
I disagree there.
You think it's bad? You don't think it's solid?
No. I think they have a top 3 goalie pair. They might
Yes.
arguably have the best goalie pair in the league.
Agreed.
I think they have a top 5 defense. I think
They do.
I will put
Okay.
a healthy Pelech and Pulock and a healthy Dobson and Romanov against anyone in the league. I think
Yeah.
their top 4 is fantastic.
Okay.
Mayfield is fine as a 5. I think whoever comes in as a 6 is fine. They need more offense out of their defense. Look, they got 50 points out of Dobson last year.
Oh, they're
and
getting
Pulock
more
was
out of him.
most of the year. If they can get Pulock back to 40-something points, I think that means a lot too.
Dobson can go to like 65, honestly.
I think he can too. I disagree with that this team's competing for a division. I disagree that I don't think they're Stanley Cup contenders. Now, can they make the playoffs? Absolutely. I think
Yes.
they can. Wallstrom needs to take a step forward. Beauvillier needs consistency. There's lots of questions up front that have to be answered for me to take them seriously. And once you get in the playoffs, obviously it's all about matchups. But I can't put them there as a Stanley Cup frontrunner or even a division leader when they struggle to score 2 goals a game. If you tell me they're going to score 3 goals a game, then yes, absolutely. And it's just little things, but there's a lot of questions. And personally, I don't like going into the season with lots of questions up front.
Yeah, I still don't think they're making the playoffs. I think they're very, very close. But again, their fourth line got older. They didn't add much. Maybe they'll get a little boost from some of the younger players. I did like the way Salo looks. I think Holmstrom took a little step, but I don't think he'll make the team. And
Lambert said he's not tied to that fourth line. So
we'll see. I know. We'll see.
So you could see Bellows a little bit more in the fourth.
That would be great. I would love to see
Cizikas
Kiefer
played
Bellows.
well together.
Yeah, I would love because he had, he was getting scratched day after day last year. I would love to see that. But even with all of that, I still think they are lacking some scoring. Now, Palmieri's scoring in preseason. We'll see if it carries over.
His second half of the season was very good.
Yeah, I still think they're going to have a little trouble though. If they don't, then they'll be right up there. I mean, they'll certainly do something at the deadline, but they have to be right in the race at that point. And that's going to be hard in the Metro. I can't just hand it to them and say, "Oh yeah, they're a playoff team." I can't
see Lambert sitting. That Cizikas, Martin, Clutter. But when they're paying them $6 million to be an energetic.
Yeah, but Martin's only making $1 million. He's the guy who sits.
Right.
Because he doesn't kill penalties. He's not the guy who needs to play every day, and I think even he knows it at this point.
You think it's Ross Johnston instead because he's got the?
No, I think it's Bellows that plays with those two on the fourth line.
So it would be good if it's Bellows.
Eck, we floated your insinuation that you said in your blog that the signing means that the Islanders are going to contend for the division, and Dan shot it down like an Iranian jet over the Straits of Hormuz.
Okay. No, I think that's just what I feel, and honestly, I think that this team, like I said before, best team in the Eastern Conference from February 1st on last year. I mean, people just don't realize that.
Matter.
It doesn't. That's a lot of months, Mike. That's February, March, April, and May. That's a lot of months.
They were the league made them play 2 weeks with 12 guys from the AHL.
Right, right. They did, and they got screwed. What everybody else got, like a benefit of, like it was, hey, buddy.
That's a little Cecily.
But they still didn't have a good home record. Tell me where they're getting all of a sudden their home mojo. They had a bad home.
Cecily's going to score a goal for them.
Yeah, probably good.
For a team that's expected to be in the playoffs, their home record was not great.
They had enough mojo for 3.5 months, Russ. I mean, it's like,
oh my God,
they were better than everybody else. I mean,
their season was over when they had that 3.5 month run.
It's not over in February. February 1st, the season's not over.
That 3.5 month run was when they were 25 points out of a playoff.
It was over.
There was no pressure on them.
If you can tell me they can score 3 goals a game, then yes, I think they're top 3 in their division. But there's so many questions that go into that.
Matt Barzal is a hell of a lot better than he was last year, and we all know that, right? And this contract,
we'll see.
No, I think he is. I think
he's better, though. He's better. I mean, come on. I mean, you might not think he's worth this contract even, but he's still better than he was last year.
No, I think he's worth it.
I think he's worth this contract too, and I think this contract also, and it's funny because with Lou Lamoriello, Barzal probably knew this contract like months ago. The reality is, I mean,
strangely, Dan, this is not This is not prototypical Lou where he's getting a bargain here. We shook our head and said, How the hell are they getting Noah Dobson at $4 million a year after he had the year that he had? We thought he was either going to sign a 1-year deal or want to get the 8-year max deal, and instead he gets a 3-year bridge at $4 million. And I thought, okay, there's Lou again. This is not a bargain. This is, like you just said, they paid a bargain would have been probably 8 times 8. Then now they're 9.15. That's pricey.
I mean,
that's market. I think they paid market value what he would get on the open market. But like I said, with the cap going up, I don't think it's the end of the world. And if you had to trade him and retain $1 million something, I think his contract's very tradable. So I think the price is fine. It's on him now and the coaching staff to find a way to get him to produce more points. Because he's capable.
They had 229 goals, the same as the Sabres. I'm willing to move them up 6 or 7 slots. But again, some other teams in the Metro are going to move up there too. And
I don't think the Metro is a good division. So
you don't think it's a good division?
No, I think it's I think it's terrible. I think they're only getting 3 playoff teams.
That's interesting.
So what 3?
You think Ottawa? You think
right now? I would say, Ottawa with the injury that's a big setback. Okay, so maybe they do get 4, but right now I would say the Rangers, the Hurricanes, are locks. I think the Penguins will be there. I'm not sold on the Capitals.
Okay.
I'm not sold on the Blue Jackets. They're not there yet. The Devils are much better, but they're not there yet.
I think the Blue Jackets will be the one that surprises you.
Yeah,
the Blue Jackets have no centers.
Well, they have young.
They have Roslovic.
They have 3 third-line centers.
Yeah, I mean they're talking up Kent Johnson like he's going to be something really.
Listen, Kent Johnson can be special.
I think Kent Johnson's going to be good, but that's a lot of pressure to put on a 20-year-old.
It is.
Sure. And Cole Sillinger.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't disagree with Dan. Like the bottom 4 teams, I think the top 4 teams in this division are pretty. I think the Islanders are the 4th team. I think those 4 teams will make the playoffs. I think that's.
I've been skeptical of Washington ever since the Backstrom.
That's fair to be skeptical.
I'm very skeptical of Washington, and I can't say anything objective about Kremlin back team. So.
Yeah. No, the Caps. I mean, the Caps and the Bruins. I'm working on my trade preview for the whole season. I'm doing a trade deadline preview for every team. I'm doing 32 teams for a trade deadline. Like now, I'm doing it. What do I think is going to happen? I'm just having a fun little thing with it. I'm going to do it for my previews. I'm going to do something different. So I was going through the Capitals, and the Bruins are 2 teams that have like stacked up on this year. I mean, after this year, they're done. Like the players are gone, all of them. So those are 2 teams, and those are 2 teams that I think we can all agree it could go either way, right? They could either be a playoff team, or they could really have a disastrous season.
One caveat to that: there is a lot of chatter out there that Pasternak is going to announce they're going to announce a contract with Pasternak in the next.
But even with him, like it's like everybody else.
Yeah, no. I mean, Bergeron and Krejci are gone, and then you have a really big gap up the middle, and I don't know whether they're going to be a viable team or not. I agree with you. I think that they're a this year team. They step. And I think, and the Capitals, I mean, they may be hoping that Backstrom comes back by the playoffs. I think he's done the way, based on everything that's come out that he may not come back ever again. And
so the only thing that the Caps have going for him, and this is possible, the Caps could end up with Patrick Kane. They're, and I've heard this a couple times, and because I mean, especially with Backstrom, if Backstrom is completely done, that gives them money to do that as well. And if they end up with Patrick Kane, that could change their fates for this season.
Wouldn't the need be more for Taves though?
Yeah, they need a center more than they need another. I mean, Kane
is just so much better than Taves. It doesn't really matter if one's a center.
No, that's true. The Capitals do need a center.
They do need a center. They can get a center too, but I think that, and they can get. I think there's a serviceable centers they can grab, but not. But I think that Patrick Kane. If you put Kane and Ovechkin in the same lineup, that is gonna be a tough team to play against. There's no question about that. But
I think if Kane joins most competitive teams, it's going to be a difficult matchup situation. If he joins the Rangers, if he joins Colorado, if it's Toronto, whoever it is.
All the other teams, I think are like teams that I think like the 3 you mentioned are all playoff teams. They're all
like I said. I had this sneaky suspicion that Kane wants to go to the Rangers. Doesn't want to say anything yet because if they trade him in mid-season, they can fit in his salary better. There's players to be going over. I think they could do all that a lot easier.
Russ, I don't think that's a suspicion. I've heard that's true. I think that's absolutely where he wants to go.
Yeah. All right, boys, I got to run.
All right.
Okay, see you, Dan.
Yeah, I'm glad I could jump on. I'll try and do it again whenever news.
Yeah, fantastic. Really nice seeing you.
Yep.
Okay, good seeing you, boys.
Take care, man.
All right.
I just think the Islanders are. I agree that there's 4 good teams and 4 iffy teams in this division. I do think that's true.
I
And
can't call Columbus iffy. I can't call them iffy.
Well, and we're going to talk about New Jersey in a minute, but I think okay, just like the Atlantic, I think Columbus and New Jersey, you got 2 teams that are vastly improved, Columbus and New Jersey. Does that mean that they're going to compete for playoff spots? I don't know, but that probably does mean you're not going to have 8 100-point teams. So they're going to be tougher outs. Right. I'm not sold on Washington, and Philadelphia is a train wreck. So yeah, I mean, I think the Rangers, I think Carolina are locks. The Islanders, I think the Islanders are in that Columbus and New Jersey. They could make the playoffs if they get great goaltending and if they get enough goal scoring. But if they don't, they're going to end up right where they were last year, which is on the outside looking in.
They're not with Columbus and New Jersey because of their goaltending right off the bat.
Like, think about this. Let's look at this logically. The Columbus Blue Jackets last year had 258 goals, and now they added Johnny Gaudreau, and again they have Kent Johnson too. They're going to be probably right in that top 10 goal area.
No, what Dan is right about. What Dan is right about. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think it's a good point. I mean, I think that when you look at the Blue Jackets, I mean, the Blue Jackets have that. I mean, they're always going to be competitive. They're always going to work hard. They have that thing that they always are, right? And then if they can add goal scoring on top of that, then then they're dangerous.
Gaudreau with Line, I think Line is going to have his best season.
Yeah, if they play them together. I mean,
on the power play, they'll be on the same power.
I think they're going to play them together for the most part.
But what Dan was right about is you've got 2 really young centers. You've got Sillinger and you've got Kent Johnson. They have guys who can play center. They have Roslovic. They have Boone Jenner. Yep. So maybe they move one of those guys to the wing to start the season. But it sounds like they're going to use them up the middle. And if they're up to it with all that strength on the wings, and if they get good goaltending from Merzlikins, then they have. I think they'll be competitive. I have more faith in Columbus than a lot of people do.
Here's the issue: Cole Sillinger was already 46.5% as a rookie for faceoffs as a center. Am I really worried about Cole Sillinger? No, I'm not.
No, I mean he's going to be a solid center. It's just where he lies in centers. He's a second line center or first line center.
Yeah, he can play second. So he could play second line center.
I think he's probably a second line center, right? And I think that
he played first line center most of last year.
He was playing it, but is he a legit? We've had this conversation before. Is he a legitimate first line center?
He's not a legitimate first line guy yet. No,
he's not.
Right, not yet. So, and I mean they have the ability to do this though. They do. They also have some defensive issues on Columbus that are there too. And their goaltending. Elvis is up and down, right? So it's like that's the question.
I mean, Korpisalo's hurt like every other goalie in the league, so maybe maybe that hurts him a little bit for a couple wins. But man, I just think their offense is better to the point where those little things that we're talking about, I don't think are going to be that big of a deal.
Let's talk about those goaltending injuries, like you were saying, Russ. Because right now, I mean, okay.
I can read you a list. I got it.
Yeah, well, okay. We'll start with the big one that Dan sort of referenced. Cam Talbot yesterday, 5 to 7 weeks with an upper body injury. Now, I haven't heard if it's concussion, if it's shoulder. I haven't heard any specifics on the injury, but, I've heard 4 to 6, 5 to 7. That's the first month and a half to 2 months of the season that you're going to have to rely on Anton Siv Forsberg.
He's not a Siv anymore. He played really well last year.
I'll tell you something. He looked like a Siv against the Leafs in preseason, and I'm not drawing conclusions in preseason games. But
don't draw conclusions on preseason games.
He had one good half season with Ottawa. I'm not ready to say he's the next.
Me neither.
I'm not ready to say he's the next best thing, but he's. I think that he's no longer he was a real laughing stock, right? Like we remember that he was just absolutely could not stop anything. He's not there anymore. Like he is definitely in the conversation now. And that's my point.
Here's the other goalies too that are banged up. I mentioned Korpisalo, Cal Peterson, Chris Dridger is out for a while with a knee. Carter Hart. I mean, let's talk about Carter Hart because he is not playing in
the regular season. But what is it? I don't know.
Let me ask you this, and this is my feeling. My feeling is a goalie should play at least one preseason game. Now, I will tell you, in the past, Tortorella used to be like, if you can't practice, you can't play. Now he's practicing, but he's not playing in a preseason game. Do I really want to bring in a goalie who's not played all preseason into the regular season, I would not want to do that, but they're going to do it.
You're going to do it because he has basically become like their Marc-Andre Fleury. He's their only hope that they have in their minds. So he's going to keep the games close because they can't score goals. So
but do you endorse that the fact that he should he should start the regular season?
Definitely play it. Yeah, I agree. I agree. You should play a preseason game. I totally agree with that. But I think that and not playing it it just, to me, psychologically as a goalie goes, like if you don't play until the regular season, like you're fearing getting hurt before you even get in there. You know what I mean? Like
I talked about that on Sirius. The mental part of just playing in preseason, knowing everything is right. It's a big deal. What if he starts the regular season and he gives up a goal that's somebody else's fault in the first 10 seconds? He hasn't had a chance to do anything this year.
Yeah, and just being afraid to get hurt. Like playing a preseason game where you don't get hurt is a big deal. Like playing afraid to get hurt, you can't play goalie with any fear of hurting yourself. You can't in the NHL. You just can't do it. Like I agree. I did it in a men's league. Being afraid I was going to kill over at any moment. But that's a different world. But for sure.
But I just think this is worrisome because first thing is the Flyers fans have to believe he's going to play in the regular season, because if he's not, then it's Troy Grosnick or Sandstrom or Ursan, and neither of them are any good for the NHL as a starter. They're good as backups, and I'm not sure Grosnick's good as a backup, but he's had 3 NHL games ever.
And going back to Ottawa, they pick up Magnus Hellberg off of waivers.
They've had him before.
Yeah. Right. So, but still, it's like, now you're going into the season for the first month to 2 months with Forsberg and Magnus Hellberg. That's not exactly Terry Sawchuk and Johnny Bauer.
No, it's not great. But this thing with the Flyers, to me, it'll be fascinating because, like I said, will Carter Hart play 50 games this year? He's never played 50.
I don't think so. I mean, I feel as if it's going to be hard to keep him healthy because he's going to get pounded on.
They're going to have so many shots and high danger chances the way that they play.
Yeah, he hasn't been a goalie that's been like he doesn't. Where I say Marc-Andre Fleury, where Fleury can play 75 games. He hasn't been that. And that's nothing against him. He just hasn't been, right? So most goalies aren't. Most goalies aren't that, to be honest. So most goalies.
No, I mean you're talking about an all-time goalie in Marc-Andre Fleury.
If you get pounded, like he's going to get pounded with shots. You can play like you can't play more than like 2 out of every 3 games tops, and that's like where you're talking. So and they're not going to be too worried about where they are in the standings. So they're going to play Sandstrom. I think it's going to be Sandstrom. I think it's going to be Sandstrom quite a bit. I'm not totally sold that Sandstrom can't pick up his game a little bit. I think he might be able to, but
no, I think he can a little bit. He's injured right now. He's another injury.
Some potential. He goes down a little bit early, but that's typical of young Swedish goalies. Mm-hmm. But I like some other parts of his game.
Me too.
I don't know. They're one of this is the weirdest Flyers team I've ever gone into a season trying to understand. Like they don't have any. There's really no comprehension on this team as to what they are.
I mean, okay. As an expert on teams that tank, I have to say that the Flyers are putting it out there that they're going to be competitive when they're actually tanking. Because the things that they
Tortorella is not a tanking coach. That's the problem.
I know, but neither was Mike Babcock. And Mike Babcock coached a 31st place team. And I think
here's the difference. Babcock came into the press conference, which we all remember. We all talk about many times. And what does he say? Pain, pain, pain. Tortorella comes into the press conference with the Flyers, and what does he say? We're going to be better than you think. We're going to be competitive.
But I do think it's in the middle, Eck. I think what's going to happen here is Torts is going to make this team start at the very bottom of the drawing board. So they're going to play his defensive system to the hilt, right? And that is already going to take away from some of the offense that they really don't have anyhow. And they're going to lose close games. They're going to lose a lot of close games. And Torts isn't going to care because he's going to be like, we're close. This is my system. It's getting better. And that's the game he's going to play.
Right. And that's why Carter Hart is so important to him. And that's why he's doing, because he realizes that's, you can play your system, but you need that goalie to be able to win some games for you. And because you're talking about a lot of 1-goal games, and you've seen it already in the preseason, which doesn't mean anything. But in the preseason, the Flyers are losing 2-1 games left and right. So that's where the season's going to be for them, And it's that's the tough thing. So,
I mean, are you even worried?
Up a really interesting point, which I like.
Here's the other thing.
Go ahead.
One more thing, Eck.
So please.
Konechny, Atkinson, and at least one other player besides Hart haven't even played one preseason game. These are like regulars for the Flyers.
Yeah, I thought Konechny was supposed to play, right? But he got hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it's just they haven't played one game.
I know. I mean, yesterday I wrote about some of the preseason stars so far that have been out there. We can talk about that too. But there have been some interesting little stories. But I do like your idea, Mike, of like you looking at the whole Eastern Conference for a second as like a big playoff thing, and like Dan saying that he thinks there are only 3 teams in the Metro. That would be surprising, but it is possible because of what Ottawa is doing, because of either Buffalo or Detroit possibly getting hot. But are the Columbus Blue Jackets, Devils, Senators, Red Wings, and Sabres all in the same world? Are those 5 teams all basically getting better, but we don't know where they're going to be? I think yes.
I would take the Sabres out of it because I still think they're a little ways away. They're making progress. They got some young players. There's some enthusiasm, but I don't think they made the additions that Ottawa or New Jersey did or Detroit did. So I think they're going to struggle at least a little bit at the that group. It would be in the Atlantic. It would be Ottawa, Detroit, and Boston because of all the injuries and the question marks right now. You have to factor in that they're not going to have Marchand for a little while. They're not going to have McAvoy and Riley and Grzelcyk for maybe up till December. So, Zaboral is going to be playing 23, 24 minutes a night. Their defense is not going to be as good. And in the Metro, it's Columbus, New Jersey, and the Islanders. I think they all belong in that group of 6. And it's not to say that none of those teams can make the playoffs. They might fight for wild card spots, but right now there's enough question marks with all of them that we have to see 20 games in where they stand.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I think we disagree on which teams there are, but I think that
in
that spot. But I think that that there are definitely 3 teams, maybe 3 teams in the Atlantic and 2 teams in the Metro that everybody thinks are going to make it. That's pretty much where I think everybody is, right? So there's only 3 more teams, right? So that's
barring something catastrophic with Tampa or Florida or Toronto or the Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, catastrophic stuff can happen to any of these teams,
right?
Yeah.
Especially the Leafs with that goaltending.
Oh, stop it, please.
Yeah, I know. It's great. Matt Murray's been great in the preseason.
It's always the
Listen, Matt Murray's great in the preseason. There's nothing to worry about, right?
Hey, how long have I been saying the preseason stuff doesn't matter?
Okay.
He could stand on his head and stop every shot. And, Peter Mrazek was the better goalie in the preseason last year. So does the preseason mean anything? No, it doesn't. I mean, that being said, the way Murray has played has been encouraging, but it doesn't mean anything. Next Wednesday, he could let in 7 goals, and I wonder what's going to be the talking point on Thursday. But no,
I bet you we hardly mention it.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, not at all. We're not going to mention that.
We wouldn't talk about that. He glossed right over it.
Of course not. Now we talked yesterday about the Chychrun stuff.
Okay, that's fine. Today, like we've talked about in our chat, we have an injury in St. Louis, right? So,
right, and now, okay, I think Perunovich was going to make the Blues. He played last year in the playoffs after I think it was Torrey Krug went out, played pretty decently. I think they had high hopes for him. Now he's out 6 months with I think it's a shoulder injury. Right. And they already have Scandella out, Russ. So it's like, if they're going down the road, that they're one of the teams that is in on Chychrun, this gives them a little more impetus to maybe.
Scandella's is a hip, right? So that's another thing for a defenseman.
I think he may be done. I think they said
could be
career threat.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. So if I'm Armstrong, I'm on the phone with the other Armstrong.
And, hey, bro, help me out.
There's that too, right? There's that.
There is that connection, and you wonder. Look, you have to do the right thing for your owner, but you have to believe that the brother probably does have an in. And so you're looking at that and saying they have good players. I don't see why St. Louis couldn't get this worked out.
Plus, if I'm not mistaken, Bill Armstrong was an assistant GM in St. Louis.
He was.
So he knows Hofer and Neighbors, all these prospects. So he knows.
Yeah, he was a good scout. Like he knows all these players. I just think this is where the deal is going to go. I felt that way even before the Perinovich, injury, but now that's one that really takes away some of their depth. And yeah, I think they need to do the Chychrun deal if they want to have a chance at winning a cup. They got close last year. They turned it around in the sense they were better than most thought. And when they get in the playoffs, they're a scary team.
Yeah, they're heavy.
I agree. I mean, I think they're right there. I think they're in the top 3 or 4 teams in the league.
Yeah,
and that they are definitely. And
no, they play heavy hockey. They have a good defense, although now a little short injury wise. Their goaltending with Bennington, who showed up in the playoffs until Nazem Kadri did a Chris Kreider on him. Was pretty good. So I think they're in a position to challenge Colorado in that division.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's look at some of these preseason guys for a second, because I think this is always fun to do. Like, anybody who has a hockey pool, it's like, you always know you're afraid of this. Like, you're afraid of these preseason guys who just take it off. And when you're trying to draft in your hockey pool, I used to get caught up in these guys sometimes, and you would end up mess up. Like Matthew Shane's on a 294 point pace right now. So let's put that, probably not going to get to 200 points,
Yeah.
Most likely definitely not 300. She's only 6 short of 300 right now at his pace. But I think that now, 7 points in 2 games. There is some, to me, there is at least some feeling there that that's a good thing, right? I mean, this is Matthew Shane, who's been up and down. He is wildly inconsistent. I'll never.
But he had a great year last.
He had a great year last year, but after years where you just couldn't give him away in Nashville, right? So I remember when he first came into the league, and I was sitting in the press box with Adrian Dater. And he was playing for Colorado, right? Matthew Shane. And I'm watching him play, and I'm like, what is the deal? Every time I see Matthew Shane, he looks phenomenal, and yet I don't see him scoring points. And Dater said he is the most inconsistent, wildly off, either on or off players that I've ever covered. He's just and this is early, second year in. This is really early. And it's continued. It's been that's been what he's done. So he was off. He was by far, along with Saros, Duchesne's why the Predators see the playoffs last year. And
here's what I would say: it can't be a bad thing, but watching these preseason games, these are 40% of what an NHL game is, I think.
Oh yeah, there's no question. I mean, there are players out there that are just just above men's league players, right? So yeah, I think that's a little bit of
not men's, but
that's a little bit of exaggeration. But I'll say that. But you know what I mean? The other day, Barzal, I heard you mention this on XM today too. He was skating around the Flyers. He was. I mean, he was.
It was unbelievable.
It was crazy. And that whole thing is, some of these guys just aren't ready to play play with NHL players. I mean, there's such a difference between great players and NHL players. It's just hard to imagine. These are all great players if they're playing in these games. They're all great wherever they came from. They were the best players.
They couldn't move laterally, and Barzal was just streaming inside of guys, just waiting to set up somebody. It was like a men's league game for him.
Yeah. I mean, the Preds are, here's the thing about them though. They're off to a really good start in the preseason. Obviously now they beat Bern yesterday. I mean, it's not but Yossi, I've been in that arena too. That's
the Flyers lost to Bern, right? A couple of years ago.
They did. So. That Bern's the only arena I've ever was in Europe to see a hockey game. It was way back in high school when I was singing with a group over there. And I went to a game in Bern, and I got to see Mike Gartner play for Bern.
Oh wow, yeah.
But and Reijo Ruotsalainen play for Bern.
Oh, Reijo, yeah.
Really weird, but that arena is phenomenal. It is a great scene, and they were
chanting. It was fun. I tuned in for a few minutes.
It was so much fun. I mean, going to that game was so much fun. And right outside, so Bern means bear, and in whatever language that is, I guess
Swiss, not German.
German, probably. I think it's German.
I think it's German.
I mean, so they speak a bunch of different languages in Switzerland, right? So, but I think that part speaks German. Anyway, so Bern means bear, and when you step outside the arena, there's literally 2 giant pits with bears in them down 30 feet below you. So you look down, and these bears who have been trained because they are so used to people that they do all these crazy tricks people throw food down to them. It's and that's the environment around that Bern arena. But anyway, the Predators, Grimaldi comes up, has had 5 points in 3 games. Janot has had
Now
5
that's
points.
that's a product of preseason, but I still think he's
Yeah.
an NHLer, like a fringe NHLer. I do.
He's a big favorite among Predators fans. Like they've been waiting.
Yes.
They want him to play more. Like that's a big talking point. Predator fans are always like, play more, play Grimaldi more. He's got.
Because you know why? He does a little bit of everything. He's fast. He's a super likable guy. I've covered him his whole career. Like,
Yeah, he's really exciting too. He's got that thing. Like he's got that. I mean, Aston Reese kind of they similar to me, but and Janot, who was of course a great player from last year. He's had a good. He's had 5 points in 2 games. So. The big thing about the Preds is 16 goals in 3 games. That is something that for the Predators, that's 5 goals a game. That's something that you don't see out of the Predators very often. Right?
No.
So,
let's turn this into the preview for the Predators, because
that's fine. We can do that.
Yeah, because you look at them right now, and they basically bring back the same team, but they've added Niederreiter up front. They added McDonough on the blue line, which is a significant add because he's still a good player.
Yeah.
Jeremy Lawson is, an okay depth defenseman. But Russ, I think the difference here between them, like bowing out in the first round and getting swept and having a chance of advancing, is like some of the young guys like Tomasino advancing, like Fabro taking more of a top 4 role. And Saros being what he was last year, which, again, I'm still a little surprised he played as well as he did last year.
Yeah, I'm always a little right guy to add that. But, Ilya Tovinen, who they going a lot in that game, is 22, right? And he had 11 goals last year in more games than the year before, but everybody was sort of like struggling that year before. He probably should have scored more goals last year. And so I'm looking, at his other numbers, and I think there is an opportunity for him to score because he's getting almost 60% of his shots through. I think he just needs a little bit. He needs to shoot even a little more. He had 151 shots. Like, this is a guy that's used to shooting, and if he could shoot more, he'll get you 20 goals. And so I think there's a possibility of that for sure. With Fabro, it's interesting because Kevin keeps saying that they sort of have marginalized him. Dante Fabro that I knew in college was sort of like a excellent puck mover. He could play the power play if you needed to him. That wasn't his main game. He could be physical at times, and he would get you like at the NHL level, like 25 points. And for some reason, I think people have expected more from him offensively, and I just don't think that's in his game.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I think but that was definitely the case in Minnesota and in St. Louis. I mean, and before this, right? They have been expecting more from him, I think, in general.
If you want an extremely, extremely dark horse candidate for the Calder, after Michael Bunting last year, when you look at these 24, 25-year-old guys who just qualify for the Calder, try Marcus Nurmi, who they signed, Finn, who they signed out of the Liga, 6'5", 206, former Ottawa draft pick. He scored 20 goals with Turku last year. Now I don't know, he may not get a top 6, he may not get even a top 9 opportunity, but he's big and he can score, and he might get an opportunity. And based on what they did last year with guys like Janot, who sort of came out of nowhere, they like big bodies on that team. They know they know that they're fighting against, Colorado and Minnesota and St. Louis in that division, and they have to be big and relatively tough to be able to survive that. And if he gets an opportunity, he might be somebody who factors in the Calder race.
Yeah, one thing I was trying to put together, in his draft year, Noah Hannafin, I tried to tell people he's not a big offensive guy. Fabro is very similar to that. Now, last year, Hannafin had 48 points, but he also was a benefit of having guys like Goudreau and one of the higher scoring teams in the league. But his normal years were right around 30-something points. I think that's the best you're going to see out of Fabro. I think what Mike said is true about them liking bigger bodies, and I think you could look for that. I think, Tovinen could add more. I think if they just get the same scoring as last year, similar scoring to last year, they'll be okay. I think it's all about Saros. I feel like that's their biggest thing is, can you see?
Saros had you broke up there, Russ.
No, just can Saros produce again at that level?
Saros had a Vezina caliber year, and they made the playoffs by 1 point. So if he slips, they're in a bit of trouble. Now, I do think that they're better overall, adding Niederreiter and adding McDonough. They're going to be, those are two quality players added to the group that they already have. So maybe they're better overall, but they need Saros to play that .915 to .920 save percentage and be close to being Vezina caliber for them to make the playoffs again.
Yeah, I'll say this too. I always liked Yakov Trenin. He had 17 goals last year. Nobody talks about him. I think he could raise that a little bit because he's strong and greasy. But also Tomasino could get in the 60-point range if he's ready. Like, he's only 21, and this kid is loaded with talent. So if they get the right guy with Tomasino, like all of a sudden him and Tolvanen were to click or something like that, there's some hidden points there for them.
Yeah, and have to mention connected to Trenin. Nashville is over in Europe playing in that in the Czech Republic in Prague, and of course Dominik Hasek has been sort of the point guy of Russian players shouldn't be playing in this in this tournament. Now apparently they are, because if the talk was if they weren't allowed to play, then the teams weren't going to go over, period. So now they're essentially plugging their noses while Russian players play.
I mean, you can't remove the Russian players. It's not their fault.
No,
it's not. We don't know how Yakov Trenin feels. I mean, look at Panarin. He's risked his life by speaking out. So I just don't think that's fair.
Yeah, this is Hasek's comment. In 4 days, an NHL game will be played in Prague. I want to tell all NHL fans that the management of the NHL does not want to respect the position of I think it's our hockey association, our ministry. Our ministry does not want Russian players to join. Well, great. Then don't hold the tournament then.
Yeah, tell Dominik Hasek to go back to selling clothing. Let him. He needs something to do.
I mean, something that we have to mention with the Predators real quick is the fact that they had 14 more fighting majors than anyone else in the NHL.
Yeah, they're a tough team.
Yeah, they're a tough. Well, guys,
49 fighting majors is a lot. And that's like, Tanner Jeannot had 14 fights, Berwecki had 13 fights, McCarr had 8 fights, Kunin had 7. These are big numbers. Those are some of the most fights in the league by any single player. And you're talking about,
I don't think it's a winning formula, though.
No, but that list that you just read off, the only one who is a top 4D or a top 9 forward is Jeannot. McCarron's a fourth liner, and Borowiecki is essentially a third pairing defenseman. So, their numbers are up, but it's not like Milan Lucic is fighting in his heyday with the Bruins. They're tough, and then they have size, and they, I think they have to have that to survive in that division. But I don't. I'm not sure if that, like Russ said, I don't know if that's a winning formula. I think they're just doing it to maintain some peace in that division.
Yeah. Bill C's right, though. I was just looking online because I wanted to confirm it. It was Trenin's rookie year where he stung Chara.
Yes.
Like, that's how strong this guy is.
Yeah. I mean, they had twice as many fights, more than twice as many fights as 25 of the other NHL teams. So, like, think about that. Like, so that's crazy. That's a crazy.
But they made the playoffs by a point. Like, so it's like, is that the reason? Like,
I know. No, you're right, 100%. I mean, they outran their expectations. They did better than we all thought they would, but I'm not sure the fighting is the reason why. And
you also have to say that if Vegas hadn't had the slew of injuries that they had last year, they wouldn't have made the playoffs.
Right.
So who's gonna out of the top 8 from last year, who's gonna drop out if Vegas is back in the playoff race, which we will see if that happens. But if they are, then who's gonna drop out to allow Nashville to get in?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance the Predators don't make the playoffs. I do. But they have been, they that is always the case with the Predators. Like, the Predators have always been the 7th or 8th seed. It feels like always, right? Like, that's what they are. And you always think they're not going to make it, and they always find a way to make it. I mean, they are very much.
Listen, if Yossi plays like he did last year, he was Superman.
Yeah. Yossi, Duchesne, and Saros. The 3 players basically who led that team.
And Forsberg,
right? He got a new contract, so that matters as well too. But yeah, these are all key guys. Yeah, I think that it'll be tough to see them make the playoffs, though, in my opinion, this year.
The chat room said that Grimaldi's in Anaheim. I think we kind of led them to believe he was still in Nashville, but
no, I'm not talking about.
Wow. He dropped himself off the show.
He cut himself.
Wow. Well, before he comes back, we'll start the other team preview, which is the Devils.
Yeah.
Now, okay, the Devils struck out in the Johnny Gaudreau sweepstakes. We don't know how serious they were, but they were in on it, but they didn't. Now they added another goaltender 3 years in a row. First it was Corey Crawford, then it was Jonathan Bernier. Now it's Vitek Vanacek. So
he's less likely to get hurt like the others, though.
Well, we'll say that now, but we don't know what the hell is going to happen. But I mean, okay, I like where the Devils are going. There's, the addition of Andre Palat from Tampa Bay is a good ad. He's a veteran guy. He's won a couple Stanley Cups. I think he helps out that young group.
I think so.
They trade the John Marino for Ty Smith deal. They clearly soured on Ty Smith. I don't know why. Yeah, he's 21 years old, I think. So now Marino, I think, is better than he's been the last couple of years with Pittsburgh. So maybe he benefits from a new change of scenery. The one thing I look at this team, Russ, is the fact that they've got a lot of guys on the walk year of their contracts. Tatar, Miles Wood, who they re-signed for a year, Haula, who they traded Zaka for, Andreas Janssen, Damon Severson, and Ryan Graves. There's a lot of players there that are in the last year of their contract. We're talking about the Devils here, Ak. There's a
I'm
lot
sorry
of
about that, by the way.
Okay, no, but there's a lot of players on the last year of their contracts, and I believe they still haven't come to an extension agreement with Jesper Bratt. So
no, they did.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe well, that's one.
Yeah, no, they definitely did. They definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah,
no, they did. Here's what I would say. Vanacek is definitely adding more stability, especially in case Blackwood gets hurt. Also, it could lighten the load for Blackwood, who probably got too many games too young. So I think that's a big deal for them. Dougie Hamilton looks like the Dougie Hamilton of a couple of years ago. He seems more engaged. He seems to be skating better and more involved in the offense. If they could get a 70-point year out of Dougie Hamilton, that really helps. I think Severson is going to end up staying now. I think Lindy has talked the organization into that because he's had better offensive years the last year, and even the last 2 years, I think it's gone up a little bit. So
and they probably shop Graves then. And no,
Brad, I think Graves will be the odd man out. I think he's sort of the rental there. I look at their offense, and even though I don't love losing Zaka, we'll see. Haula seems to be a good all-around guy. They had 258 goals last year, and Jack Hughes only played half a year. Their goal numbers are going to go up. Whether Holtz makes the team or not, I love him as a sniper, but he still could start the year in the AHL. Wouldn't shock me because maybe they want him to get a little more seasoning. That's fine. Bratt's going to have a really good year again. He is sort of an underrated guy, I think, in the league. I think people in New Jersey know what he's worth to them. But around the league, I don't think he gets enough notice.
Yeah,
this team could score. This team skates well. If they stay healthy and they get NHL average goaltending, they're a threat for the playoffs.
Brett did not sign.
For a second. Pause for 1 second. Rocco Grimaldi, right? Who I was talking about with the Predators.
Yeah.
It's still a Predator, right? Like you guys were talking about.
No, Anaheim PTO.
Anaheim.
Wait a second. No, I mean, look. No, I was just looking at that. We're looking. He's not. He's a Predator, guys. What am I talking about?
Is he?
I just went on. I went on the site.
He is on Anaheim on a PTO. He was with.
No, he's got there are highlights of him scoring in the preseason right here on the. What the heck? No, like
Are
you
in 2021, Ek? Is that why it's a little?
Go to Rocco Grimaldi. Just go to his He was born in Anaheim.
According to Cap Friendly, he is an Anaheim PTO.
I think Ek is trapped in 2021. I think that's the issue.
Yeah.
Look, let me show you something.
Sure.
This is insane. Just continue. But this is like if you go to CBS, what the hell?
Well, there's a mistake right there. CBS.
No, but even like, I'm so confused.
I mean, CBS shows the Equalizer, but otherwise, I mean,
yeah, but no, not the real Equalizer. Don't start with me. Not that Queen Latifah piece of crap.
Season premiere.
Has he not been scoring goals in for the Anaheim Ducks in the preseason? I mean,
I'm looking.
Okay, yeah, all right, never mind. He's listed as a Nashville Predator on.
He was on their roster last year.
No, but right now he's currently like I'm going to show you this. It's like crazy. Sorry, right now like he has that. That's why I'm sorry. I did not realize. I thought he went back to the Preds because I'm looking at this. That's so
Heck,
weird.
you know Ryan Ellis isn't playing, right?
Shut up.
Shut up.
Well, because if we're at the beginning of last year, this is how I know you're not trapped in a time continuum.
Rocco Grimaldi is leading the Anaheim Ducks with 5 points in 3 games.
Right, he's having a great preseason, and I just hold on,
just a little further west.
That I'm not insane. All right, I'm going to do this right now for you guys. So preseason, look, I'm going to show you this here. Points, complete point leaders. The only place I can find this preseason statistics. Hold on, I'm going to share this stream with you.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to find these.
This is fantastic for the podcast listeners.
I'm sorry about this. I know it's just really bothering me right now. Why can't I share a screen? I can't share a screen either. Okay, look. Thank you. There,
Anaheim
Mike, go to the preseason scoring leaders.
Okay.
On that website, just on CBS Sports Line, go to preseason scoring leaders. Okay.
Right.
There we go. Now go to points. Points on the right. Matt Duchene. See where that is?
Yeah.
See where Matt Duchene is on the right? Now go there. Go now. Scroll down. And when you get to Grimaldi,
they have Nashville.
Right.
Yes. But we knew from
I'm just not losing my mind here, man.
No, I mean, but CBS
no.
clearly has a lousy update for their hockey section.
But this teaches you a lesson.
Yes.
Never use CBS Sports.
Right.
But okay.
For hockey.
For hockey, yes.
I'm going to drink this bleach. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Nobody will say a word.
It'll brighten your day. But here's the thing.
And you won't get the virus.
But here's the overall. There you go. Here's the overall thing with like a guy like Dawson Mercer, who had a really good rookie year.
Yeah,
they're expecting him to produce this year.
I think he will.
Right now, the question is, from what I understand, they brought in Halla to basically be the third line center, so they can play Mercer on the wing.
Right.
Which might be a good. That means Mercer plays in the top 6.
Power
play, but maybe his future is up the middle. But right now they don't. With Hischier and with Hughes, they want those guys as the top 2.
I think Hischier's injured, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying
you're just saying after that. Okay.
I'm saying perfect lineup when everybody's healthy. Okay. It's Hughes number 1, Hischier number 2.
Although the Devils never have a perfect lineup with everybody healthy, we should.
The Devils are so confusing. They're such a confusing team, and they actually, I mean, they have every bit of potential to be a playoff team. Like the attitude that I've been around talking to people who've been around the team in the preseason is like really strong. Like they really are feeling good about themselves right now.
Okay, but I will say this, Zach. I know a lot about the Devils and how they operate and everything else too, and I think they do tend to be a little overly flowery about what they feel this team is. I do. I think in their minds they think it's as good as the Rangers and as good as Carolina, but it never translates on the ice. And the fact that they still have Lindy there is a tough sell to me that they're going to get there with Lindy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, like I said, the benefit of that is that he's there because the players want him there, right? So the players are going to have to prove that he's good enough to be there, right? So that's
okay. So I'm going to point out something. I am not an NBA anything, but Josh Harris owns this team and he owns the Sixers. And Josh Harris has been forcing Doc Rivers still on the Sixers and their fans. And how's Doc Rivers doing for the Sixers, Zach? Well, X thinking about it. It's not great.
I think X frozen.
I know. That's the last part of 2021 the continuum that he's stuck in.
Well, here is a
sure.
Okay.
Here is a quote.
No, that's a good point.
And we've talked about, and knowing Lindy Ruff as I do in terms of him being in Buffalo all those years, and what happened with him in Dallas in terms of developing young players, or in a sense, almost ruining a guy like Valery Nikushkin. Ruff was quoted by our buddy Mike Morial about Simon Nemec. Nemec has to get comfortable with the way we play. Sometimes with a first-year player with his caliber is trying to do too much. I think too much in some of those situations got him in trouble. It's keeping the game in front of him, playing well defensively. Russ, I don't feel comfortable with Lindy Ruff developing young guys like Nemec, which is the reason why I thought he was going to get fired last year. He didn't. Now, I don't know whether Nemec is going to make the team. Probably not. It sounds
I would send him to the AHL just based on that. If I were Fitzgerald, I'd be like, send him to the AHL tomorrow just to protect him against Lindy. I would do that.
Yeah. Right, yeah, which is what they did with Holtz. Which is what they did with Holtz last year, and he had a great year in the minors. So, but if things fall right, they're in the mix. They'll be playing consequences.
If they get better than average goaltending, they're in the mix. That's really
absolutely.
They're playing meaningful games in March and April. But do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No, I don't.
I mean, if Jack Hughes plays 75 games, he'll have 85 points.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hughes could be a 100-point scorer this year. To be honest, I think Hughes is about to break through. Like he's really is right on the edge of breaking through to what everybody thought he could be. Like a Patrick Kane type player, and he's close. So he's got. I mean, obviously he's got to win some Stanley Cups before he's get Patrick Kane status, but he's that skilled. He's that skilled. So
yes,
that's the issue is that that's where we're going to see this. We're going to see how this plays out. It really comes down to goaltending with them. It has the last couple of years. The goaltending has let them down at every possible time it could. They have not gotten any break with goaltending at all for the last couple of seasons, and they know it, and they're frustrated by it. And
some of them were bad signings. Corey Crawford was a bad signing.
Well, yeah, but he got hurt right away.
It didn't kill them because when he retired, the money came off the cap. They were just
but it was just like when they signed him, he was on his last legs anyhow. Like we all knew that.
Yeah. I mean, they've been trying to get that guy. They tried to get Marc-Andre Fleury. They've been trying to get that guy who can because they're fast, quick. I mean, the thing that they have going for them, and this is true with every team in the NHL now that is tough to play against. They all play fast. That is to me, that is the NHL. Sure. That's the difference right now that in any other era that I can remember. It's a matter of playing fast now. Like that's why the Vegas Golden Knights could do what they did. That's why, the Montreal Canadiens even could go to the Stanley Cup Finals that year. It's like playing fast is the reality. If you can play fast, you can do a lot in this league. And playing fast just wins games. And that's what the Devils do very well. So that's where they have, once they get, Luke Hughes in there too, that's a big point. They have a lot coming. Yeah. They have a lot of future with that team. They are going to be I believe the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Devils will be powerhouses in this division eventually. It's just a matter of time, I think. But the other teams have to fall off a little bit. Like the Penguins have to fall off a little bit, and they're not. Penguins aren't going to fall off yet. The Penguins are still good.
Yeah. By the way, Mike Russo said that maybe Ken Johnson's not going to make the team. I'm not sure where he's getting his info from, but
Portsline did.
Portsline, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's no shame if he starts in the AHL. It's not.
Well, I think with him, it's like you want him to be your first line center or not. Like that. I think to me don't you feel that, Russ? Like if he's not your top center,
I guess only because the way this team's constructed. I mean, like Mike said, you could throw Boone Jenner up there, and he's not number one center, but he could play the part for a few months to see what Johnson is.
Or you put Roslovic in there because he,
I mean, Johnson's used to playing the wing.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe that's a better place to put him in the beginning because it's like if he's going to be the center between Gaudreau and Laine, that's a tall order.
It is.
Roslovic could fit in as a 2, which would mean you have to put Sillinger in as a 1 again. So
could do that too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Sillinger is not the biggest body in the world, so going up against guys like Matthews or Bergeron he's
really feisty though, Mike. I mean, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, and if he's got Gaudreau and Laine on the wing, that takes the edge off a little bit. But
Yeah,
so
true.
so we'll tackle a couple more team previews.
A couple
tomorrow.
more little things I want to do real fast here, because I thought this. Assuming these players were all on the teams I thought they were, I wanted to talk about a couple
Depends
more
where you're
guys. Like
looking.
Timo Meyer's still on the San Jose Sharks, right?
Last
Yeah, Timo Myers is having an incredible preseason as well, and that's another player who.
But he's a star in the league already.
Well, yeah, that's why when I did this, I sort of split it into 3 categories, right? Like I split up into the categories of, players who key vets that just look ready. Like to me, Jack Eichel also is there. Jack Eichel is going to be a very interesting player this year. He is, from everything he's already taking it. He's already doing really well in preseason, not to be unexpected, but remember that Jack Eichel last year hadn't played for a very long time, and then he broke his hand. But if he's healthy and 100%, that is a game changer.
Sure,
it's a game changer of a player.
But I still don't think he's a 100-point guy anymore. I don't.
I think he is. It will be interesting to see. I think he's going to show something this year that I don't think we've ever seen, which is because he's going to play with better skilled players than he's ever played with for an entire year.
Well, I'm not sure if they're going to put all their eggs in one basket and have him play with Stone. I did hear something.
He never played with any team. He didn't play. There was nobody like this. Wasn't Buffalo when he was there. Was nothing like this.
He made Skinner almost a 50-goal scorer.
Right. So he can do a lot, right? Logan Brown, who's a 4th-line player, I know, but having like a great preseason, and
I'm just happy if he gets an NHL job. I'm going to say that one is, fortunate for him.
Right.
Some offseason. I also did some offseason acquisitions with early impacts. Like Brent Burns has really been.
Yeah, I'm not shocked there.
Yeah, Mason Marchment, has 3 goals in 2 games.
I'm shocked.
Listen, Malgin made a good preseason look too, Mike.
Yeah, but he's probably going to get placed on waivers.
Yeah,
I think the Panthers are going to miss Marchment a lot, and I think that was a great pickup for the Stars. Tyler Mott has played amazing so far in preseason.
He's just a decent player. Preseason's a time for a guy like Mott to shine, but he's a decent player. Yeah,
for sure. I'm not saying these guys are, I'm trying to get from you guys whether you think these guys are for real or not.
Logan Brown's not real. Logan Brown's a 4th liner.
Yeah, he's a 4th liner, but if he can,
Tyler Mott's a 3rd or 4th liner. They're having good preseasons, but does that mean all of a sudden that they're going to be shot through a cannon into superstardom? No.
Mark Giordano is another one who, I think is going to be. You're going to see a lot more from him as he gets comfortable with that team, and then suddenly becomes the leader that he can be. Okay.
Leadership, I'll agree with you. He's going to take over the mantle that Jason Spezza had in terms of a veteran guy in that locker room. He's well respected. No, he's not going to play a ton of minutes. He's 39 years old. They're going to load manage the shit out of him. They're going to do the same thing that they're doing with Jake Muzzin. I'd be surprised if Giordano plays 70 games. I think he's going to play like 65 to 70 games. They want him around for when the playoffs come around. They have extra defensemen. They have young defensemen that they want to get playing time if they keep all the defensemen that they have. So he's having a really good year. And Nick Robertson, who's got 7 points in 3 games.
Yeah, he's coming up in my list too. Yeah, for sure. But here's the thing about Giordano. Okay, to me, like if the Leafs were to have success, if they're going to have success, Giordano could be the player that really is like the guy who's getting handed the Stanley Cup second, right? Like he's the guy who is going to be. He's the big veteran who could make a huge difference on that team.
They have to go around first, but okay. I mean, I'm not disputing.
I know, but they've had nobody like him, in my opinion, before. Like Spezza's a good captain, and Spezza was a captain for a while for sure.
Well, let's see how many games he can play. That's the whole thing.
He's the real deal. He's the real deal, and I think that he's going to give a real stability to that locker room.
He's not the same defenseman that he was 2 years ago. He's still excellent. They're very happy to have him. I think what they're going to end up doing is he's probably going to be playing on the bottom pairing with either Rasmus Sandin or Liljegren. They're going to have Brody and Riley together. They're going to have Muzzin and probably Justin Hall as a shutdown pairing. And Giordano, they're going to manage his minutes. They're going to manage his games. They want him there in April and May when the playoffs are around.
Yeah.
And that makes a ton of sense.
He played 75 games last year combined, but the year before 56. Well, that was a shortened year. The year before, then 60. Like I don't think he's the same guy that's going to play like 80 games anymore. So I think
No,
if
but
you
he's
get
like
60,
the Ron Francis, the Penguins Ron Francis.
yeah,
The
I think if you
Penguins
get
version of
60
Ron
out of
Francis.
him, you're happy.
Like that's how I see it.
I want to
Like,
mention one other guy that
Yeah, go ahead.
maybe has on the list, maybe not. I spoke about him about a week ago, and that's Dylan Holloway. I think he's going to make the team. Spoke to him about a week and a half ago. He's
Mhm.
he's a guy that had like just bad luck with injuries in Wisconsin, and then also when he came over to the Oilers and then played some AHL. I think, and this either center, but whether they put him at center, I don't know. But
Yeah.
he also could add scoring, and he's fast and he's skilled. That's another guy that could really help them.
Do you have to
Yeah.
say that? Do you have to say that players that get released from PTOs that they're likely their career is over with? Because now in the last, we had Antoine Roussel. He was released from his PTO. I don't think there's much left there. James Neal got released from his PTO for Columbus yesterday. Not much left there. And then today, Danny DeKeyser, who had a bunch of injuries over the last few years, just got released from his.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Galchenyuk was released from one too. So
Yeah.
I agree. I think that
No, I
all
think
those
that's it pretty
guys.
much for a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
What about Daniel Gushchin on the Sharks, Russ? I mean,
Daniil Gushin. So he's an interesting guy because when I saw him in the USHL and interviewed him, he was a young guy who had a tremendous skating ability and scoring potential. And at that time, he didn't know where he was going to go next. He didn't know if he was going to go to college. He didn't know if he was going to go to the OHL. He said he was going to try and turn pro, which he didn't. And so now I don't know where he is. In a lot of scouts' eyes, he's dropped off a little. I still have some faith in him because I saw the raw ability.
he put up a hat trick in the preseason, like against the Vegas Golden Knights, which was something that was kind of impressive. Like he's
got a shot. He does.
He looked really good, and I thought that was something that on that Sharks team, it's kind of hard to deny that a guy who puts up a hat trick in the preseason isn't going to get a look.
But he is 20, and he only played 3 games in the AHL last year because he played with Niagara. Otherwise, So I don't know. Look, it is possible that if you were going to say you don't have to worry about defense that much, and you put him with a supreme playmaker, could he score 20 at the NHL level? I think it's possible because he has that kind of shot.
Right.
But I don't know if now's the time. I'm not sure.
Well, okay. We'll track this as possibly one of the more interesting stories. And the only reason I'm aware of it is because Toronto has played Montreal twice. A 21-year-old undrafted defenseman named Arbor Jakai, and Korean is in the chat, so I'm sure she's well aware of him. 6'4", 240 pounds, mobile, played for Hamilton last year, who made the Memorial Cup final against St. John, had 16 points in 18 games. He's a disruptive force. He's big. He's tough. There's a legitimate chance he might make the Canadiens. Now, it's because the Canadiens are, not the best team in the league, but I think this is a guy that you build on. It's a guy that if he makes mistakes right now, who cares? You're in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes if you're Montreal. But this is a guy 2-3 years down the road that might be a serviceable defenseman. He's a left-hand shot. He's monstrous. So, I mean, if I'm a rebuilding team like Montreal, why not take a chance on this guy?
I don't know what he is, but if you're playing him, and if you're playing him, it means you're not rushing Caden Gooley. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So Karen says Hughes loves him, needs to be reined in a bit at times, but really love him. Yeah. I mean, they could use a big defenseman, that team. That team needs a big defenseman for sure.
And I know people are excited about Brad Lambert because he scored and looked great in preseason. He really needs to play, AHL hockey first. He does. He needs probably a full season there to kind of get used to the North American game and make sure he could score at this level. In preseason, he's got a high skill level. He does, but he's got other parts of his game that he needs to work on.
But here, I'll read off this quickly because Randy in the chat was talking about PTOs. Right now, the ones that have been signed, Beaulieu, DeHaan, Scott Harrington, and Daniel Sprong with Seattle. Those who have been released, Galchenyuk, Christopher Gibson, Andrew Hammond, let's see here, Thomas Hickey with the Devils, James Neal, Antoine Roussel, and Zach Senyshyn.
Yeah, he's another one that
there are about a dozen, maybe 15, 16 that are still up in the air. Guys like Michael Stone, Jimmy VC, Zach Aston Reese is going to get signed by Toronto.
Yeah, I want to answer to Corinne as far as the Canadians. If Gooley makes the team, I'm not sure it's a positive. Like, I like Caden Gooley a lot. But again, he is just 20. You're putting him in that market with a team that's going to be like mediocre. I'm not sure that's the right move. I mean, that's something that I don't know if they're really paying much attention to. And the reason I say that is because the way they're forcing Slafkovsky to sort of be an NHLer when he may not be ready for the NHL. And I think it's fine if he's not ready for the NHL, because we have to remember, even though he played a lot of games over the last year, they were all in different leagues. He had all different coaches. He wasn't in one place too long. And again, I'm not sure he's in NHL condition. I think that's something where we're starting to see that he may, need to ramp up his own training because he's just not used to it. Like, he just didn't have time to do it.
Yeah. A couple other guys real quick. So Nick Robinson, like you said, Mike, having a great preseason. I mean,
he's going to be
100% ready to be on the Leafs.
Well, okay, let's just say this. He's going to make the Leafs because Tavares is out and Pierre Engvall is out. He's good as long as they keep him in a scoring role, which last night he was playing with Kerfoot and Nylander, then that makes sense. He had 3 assists last night. He's playing really well. The defensive side of the game is still a little bit of a question mark. He's a smaller guy. He got wasted by Justin Barron along the boards, and this is a guy who's been seriously injured in like the first 2 games of each of the last 2 seasons. Now he's built himself up physically. He's much stronger, but I think they're still a little fearful of his durability. But they're going to give him a chance because he's scoring right now. He deserves it.
He does deserve it. Igor Chinakhov. Speaking of another
Chinakhov,
speaking of another Blue Jacket, he was sort of he played 64 games last year in the league, but he has definitely looked really good in this preseason and looks like he's ready for us.
Yeah, he's fast and has scoring ability. I still question his overall game, but they kind of threw him in there last year, and he proved that he could play offensively in the league, and I think he can.
Yeah. And finally, Mason McTavish, who we've talked about plenty, but the reality is, I watched together yesterday morning. I turned on.
He's a star in the making.
Yeah, I turned on the NHL Network yesterday morning, and I'm watching the Ducks. They were replaying the Ducks in the Kings preseason game, and the game itself kind of boring, whatever. But to get to the shootout, and McTavish has a shootout against Jonathan Quick, and just wastes Jonathan Quick on. And he's like, this is Jonathan Quick we're talking about, and a kid who's that young, he just absolutely, his move was ridiculous. Like, he was coming in at a slow speed down the kind of like the right side, really slow, and then out of nowhere, the acceleration to go to his forehand on the left side and he had the whole net to shoot out with Quick. It was not even like, it wasn't like the Forsberg move. It was because it was further out from the net, but he just changed the angle so much on Quick so quickly that Quick didn't have a prayer, and it was just in the back of the net. And I'm like thinking, this kid looks like he's been around forever.
I just think it's unfair when you have a 20-something-year-old going up against a 30-something-year-old goalie. Like, I always give the edge to the shooter anyhow, but especially with a McTavish,
McTavish is a star. Like, he is absolutely a star, and there's no getting around it. I mean, and the Ducks are a hard team to predict. Like, they are really, when you watch them play, you're like, especially with Rocco Grimaldi now in their roster, which I didn't realize. Especially now adding Rocco Grimaldi, who I'm sure will absolutely get a contract there.
He's everywhere.
They dodged a big bullet with Zegras only being out day to day after that big check from Janik. So, the concern about the Ducks, and we have to go here because we're running late here, but the concern about the Ducks here is, remember at the end of the season last year, the Coyotes started getting really physical with them, and they had no response, and they still don't have any guys who can really stick up, and they have a lot of skill.
Actually, Max Jones is back and healthy. He can do that. He's offensively, but he's big too.
They need more than just that. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't go out and get Delorier and bring him back, or a couple guys. And I think it's going to be incumbent upon that team to protect their kids.
Well, last year when they were really going to begin the season, Josh Manson was a big part of it. for that reason. You're saying for the same reason. Like they really, and he was a huge part of their whole thing. Like he not just from everything I've heard from the locker room and everything, he was always like, we're better than people think. He was leading that charge. So,
but I do think Max Jones will help him there. He's 6'3".
Max Jones will help for sure. But Josh Manson's experience, that kind of thing is definitely something that they're going to suffer from. But they could make the playoffs. I mean, I'm not writing them out, writing them up. Everybody else seems to write them up.
Everybody knows my history with what I think about the coach. I thought last year he did okay. I think this year is probably the year where they decide if they're going to keep him long term or not.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'm going to be starting a series starting tomorrow where I'm going to be previewing. I'm trying to look for a new way to preview things, right? And this year what I'm going to do is I'm going to preview I decided I'm going to go through the teams and preview, like do a power ranking based on what are going to be the most interesting teams to watch trade-wise this whole season, just for fun. Okay. I thought I would do it. And it's going to be kind of interesting. So like, I've been ranking the teams. I went through all the free agents the last couple of days. I've been ranking them together, and I'm going to start putting them together. I'm going to put out like 2 or 3 a day just to kind of get it going. But because just kind of like, why not preview the world of trades? Because this year I think we're going to see quite a few, being that we have the salary cap issues next year that'll be changing. So.
And tomorrow's team previews will be the New York teams, Islanders and Rangers.
Okay, we'll do Islanders and Rangers tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will all talk to you tomorrow.